It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma.
Erik Rosenblatt here, and today I'd like to talk about a subject that's been pestering me for a really long time, at least since I was a teenager. Uh, Recently, I was watching a movie review, and it brought back a lot of these pet peeves that I have, and they all center around guns in movies. Now, many of you probably already know that I have a decent amount of experience with firearms. While I wouldn't call myself an expert, I've owned and fired quite a few, and I've repaired guns, I've built guns, I've studied a lot of the history and engineering of them. It's one of the many subjects I'm fascinated with. So, of course, when it comes to their depiction in media, I'm keenly aware of inaccuracies. And oh boy, our movies rife with errors. And honestly, I don't understand why. If it was like a low budget TV show, I'd expect things to be off a bit. But how is it that $100+ million film doesn't hire a technical advisor? Productions that involve firearms will generally use an armorer who is a presumed expert. So what? They can't ask them a few basic questions? I'm guessing the producer and or director probably they don't know enough about the subject to ask in the first place. They just go with the historical practices that everyone else uses without giving it a second thought, or so I think. There are so many of these inaccuracies and issues that I couldn't possibly cover them all in this short, long video, but I'll go over a few of the more egregious ones that come to mind. First off, the one that prompted me to record this in the first place, the silencer. Actually, that's not even a thing. It's called a suppressor. In movies, suppressed gunshots always sound like a quiet laser blast or something like pew pew. In reality, it still sounds like a gunshot. It's just quieter, maybe a little like a loud BB gun. And you can definitely hear it quite well. I remember seeing a scene in a John Wick movie where the two dudes are walking through a crowded hallway full of people while shooting at each other with suppressed firearms, and no one seemed to notice. Yeah, that's not how it works. Next, there's trigger control. Often in movies, you see supposedly elite or military trained individuals casually walking around with a gun in their hand and their finger on the trigger. Like, not when they're engaged in a firefight. No, just walking around. Furthermore, they'll be waving the gun around with the muzzle crossing paths with their comrades. Not only would no one with more than 10 minutes of training do that, but it's also infuriating in that it suggests to the viewer that a super unsafe practice is normal. No wonder there's so many accidental discharges. Another really dumb representation in movies is ammo capacity. You hardly ever see anyone carrying around an extra magazine, but somehow during a combat scene, they fire like 1,000 rounds per person. Have you ever tried picking up a box of that many rounds of, say, 9mm? Yeah, you're not going to be pulling off any backflips or fancy moves with 15 kilos of brass and lead in your pockets. And that brings me to another gripe: the unnecessary use of full auto. While it looks and sounds spectacular and is fun in real life, fully automatic fire is usually a stupid option for real combat situations. But for some reason, it's like the default setting on almost every movie firearm. I don't know, maybe if you're fighting acid blood aliens on LV-426 or giant bugs on Klendathu, it makes sense to mag dump every foe you encounter. But not when you're fighting humans. There's a reason why virtually every military firearm capable of automatic fire is select fire. Rarely Does full auto make tactical sense aside from burst fire, which, it's a nice compromise? Come to think of it, the only movie I can recall employing a burst fire weapon was RoboCop. Man, love that movie. Speaking of full auto, how about when the main character runs through a gauntlet of dozens of people firing hundreds of rounds apiece at them without so much as a scratch? But when they shoot back, every single round hits its target and sends them flying back, killing and re-killing them. I get it that it would be pretty lame if in the movie the hero gets immediately taken out when they encounter a horde of bad guys, but at least provide some plausible explanation for it, right? Back to RoboCop. Murphy gets absolutely eviscerated early on and is only able to withstand such an attack after being converted into a cyborg. I suppose that movie wins the 1987 KSM Award for firearms accuracy. Well, except how does that tiny handgun hold so many rounds? I'll go with Future Tech miniature neutron star alloy cartridges propelled by tiny nuclear explosives. Ugh. And last but not least is when someone cocks an already chambered gun. Oh man, that drives me nuts. I get it that it sounds cool and it's great for dramatic effect, especially to hammer home that I'm serious vibe or increased tensions. But I've seen so many times in so many films where the firearm is clearly chambered and the wielder just cocks it again. Naturally, you never see the inevitable unfired cartridge eject from the gun, probably because the people making the movie don't even understand why that would happen. It might not nullify your suspension of disbelief to see something like that, but it sure does for me. Oh, God. Well, anyway, I've rambled on long enough. I guess the main point is don't take to heart or emulate things you see on the big screen or the small screen. It's fantasy. But guns are real. Even if you never intend to own or operate one, at least attempt to learn a little bit about them, preferably from a professional. Don't be like the media or politicians and get all your information about guns from movies and TV. And maybe next time you watch a film, I don't know, try to pick out some of these errors or make up some of your own. It can make a fun drinking game with your friends.
Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the channel. We got a little something for everybody. Full-length episodes, short episodes, medium-length episodes, lightning rounds, all kinds of stuff. Every topic you can think of. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends.